dog loving friends. So the wrap up to my Address or Suppress series. So if you remember my very first episode, we talked about, I said, make a list of all your dog's undesirable behaviors and categorize them. And you're looking for patterns. So you might see once you lay them all out, for instance, like I look at, so when I do a behavior modification program with a client and they lay out all their, undesirable behaviors, I often see, pulls on leash and steals stuff from the kitchen counters and jumps on visitors. Pulls on leash, jumps on visitors, steals stuff from the counters. All of those, the golden thread for all of those is what? A lack of self-regulation and a lack of training. So pulling on leash, I maybe have not taught them that where I want them in location to my body, but it can also be, I want to pull, I want to be a dog. So I'm just being a very normal doggy behavior, but I've also not learned to inhibit my desire to pull around, and I'm inhibiting my desire, I'm self-regulating to walk with you. So that's a combination, lack of training and lack of self-regulation. Stealing stuff off the kitchen counters, that is a lack of self-regulation in that I have not taught the dog, so a lack of training as well, but the dog has not learned how to inhibit their desire to take stuff. Like if I see it, I take it. If I want it, I take it. This is why when I teach impulse control, I don't teach it as leave it, because that requires that I'm there to tell you to leave it. If I've taught my dog, don't take stuff off the kitchen counter, and I see him cruising through the kitchen and I'm on a conference call and the dog knows that, like, the dog looks at me like, oh, you can't tell me no because you're busy working, and I'm going to totally steal it. Versus if I teach the dog, you don't take it unless I say you may have it, then it doesn't matter if I'm on the conference call or not. I've not given you that permission. Therefore, I'll leave it alone. So you can see that that is a lack of self-regulation. Jumping on visitors, lack of training, I haven't told you what I do want you to do, and lack of self-modulation, self-control. So when you start to see this, you can see when, because this happens a lot when I come in to do a behavior modification program, I will say, this is your golden string, like this is what you need to start working on. And sometimes I get pushback from clients because they're like, well, that's not addressing my problem. Correct, I'm addressing the cause. I'm not focusing on suppressing the behavior. I'm addressing the cause, and the cause is X. I will put management tools into place that make the dog, that don't allow the dog to rehearse those behaviors. But that's not addressing, that, right? Because most of the time when I come in for a behavior problem, people just want to address the behavior and suppress the behavior. They don't want to address the underlying issue. And when I sit down and explain to them what I'm doing, I get this light bulb moment where they go, aha, now I understand, which is why I wanted to put this series together, because I want you to understand the process. Now, if you need help implementing the process, if you're like, okay, well, like, I know I don't want them to do X, Y, Z, but I truly can't figure out what I do want them to do, or I know what I want them to do, but I don't know how to teach them to do what I want to do. If you have some of this stuff already done, when you reach out to me remotely or in person, or even another trainer, if you do some of that legwork, you'll be able to fast track your hands-on coaching time because you will have done some of the work already. And that's what I love about online learning. That's what I love about this format, is that I can explain to you all of this stuff about training. And then when we do get together, whether it's me or another trainer, like, we can hit the ground running, as opposed to me having to take an entire session to explain this, or to kind of explain what I'm doing. So when it comes to naughty behaviors and problems that you're having with your dog, I always want you to remember the quote, okay? Beneath every behavior, there is a feeling. And beneath every feeling, there is a need. And when we meet the need, rather than focus on the behavior, we begin to deal with the cause, not the symptoms. And that's by Ashley Warner. So sometimes the need is more training. You haven't adequately trained them. Sometimes the need is more management so that they don't have muscle memory of their undesirable behaviors. Sometimes the need is more mental enrichment because they're bored. They're bored, so they're filling that boredom by their own choices, so they need more mental enrichment. Sometimes the need is more support of their emotional world, their anxieties or fears or lack of socializations. Sometimes they just need some support in their emotional body. And so when you look at all of those, you can determine what is their need and then go about helping them fill that need, instead of having them flail around and just have all these whack-a-mole behaviors. Address the root cause and you will see behaviors across the board improve. I was recently called to work with this young dog, 6 months old, and very exuberant love her at the door, which is a very common problem. Just over the top, jumping on visitors when the visitors sit down, like trying to jump in their lap and just like, love me, love me, love me, love me, which is not uncommon. And the first thing I said, after doing the assessment was like, we need to teach some self-control and self-modulation. And I didn't even go through all of this bits, right? I could tell that the owner was a little overwhelmed. Like, my dog is naughty and I don't know what to do. Cool. This is what I want you to do. And she was such a good student. Like, I'm so proud of her because she was like, okay, you tell me what to do, I will do it. Even if I don't understand why you're telling me to do it, I'm going to do it. And for a week, she busted her hiney on doing some self-control, self-modulation with dinner. The following week when I came back, the dog was still very excited to see me, but the time that I walked in the door to the time the dog was able to access cognitive function and sit had gone from, 30 minutes the previous week to 4 minutes. Like, I had to actively be training like 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, and then you could see the dog settle and into a sit and can process cognitive function. And the only change we made, we did not work on manners at the front door. The only change I made for that week was having the mom teach self-regulation around food. And that's the only change we did. And it lays the foundation for all of the other things that I want to do because the dog is building muscle memory of, I want to do something. Oh, wait, I ask permission. I don't just do what I want. I ask for permission and I learn how to communicate with humans and I learn how to control my desires. And then it opens up the door and allows me to teach all the things we do want the dog to do at the door. So we're addressing the need, which is learning how to control my own emotions for the dog. And so that is what I want you to understand, is that it's not just about suppressing. It's not about, yelling at the dog. It's not about putting the dog on leash. It's not about putting the dog in another room. Those are management techniques, which will help. But at the root, if we don't address the root, we're always going to be using a management technique. We're always going to be yelling or nagging the dog or punishing the dog, depending on who you are. So we have to address the root cause. So that's why I wanted to put this series together, so that when you encounter a problem behavior, I want you to stop and ask yourself, do I want to address it or suppress it? Now, in the moment, you might need to just suppress it, like knock it off, stop it. But in that moment, but you need to step back and say, okay, like I suppressed it for this situation. Grandma came over and my dog was jumping on her and we can't have that. So I need to suppress it. But do I want to spend the rest of my dog's life suppressing that behavior, or do I actually want to address the behavior? So address the need, address the root cause, so that the dog no longer feels the need to express that behavior that way, right? Beneath every behavior, there's a feeling. And beneath every feeling, there is a need. And when we meet that need, rather than focus on the behavior, we begin to deal with the cause, not the symptom. So deal with the cause, address the cause, don't just suppress the behavior. So I hope you have enjoyed this series. And until next time, may you always have a dog to love.